Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. I'm here today to tackle about environmental scanning, organization analysis. This topic will help you to identify where to look for strengths and weaknesses and understand the Braille analysis or Braille framework. Strengths and weaknesses are needed to be understood in order for an organization to know how it will use what it has to move forward with strategic planning. Organizational resources. The resources of an organization are its building blocks. This means that the lack of resources will therefore guarantee a weak foundation for an organization. The lack of understanding of what resources are needed also can affect how an organization will move forward and succeed. Tangible and intangible resources is assets of an organization. Capabilities is skill or activities that create or use these resources. Core competence is a capability that creates a competitive advantage, while incompetence is a lack of capability that leads to a competitive disadvantage. In order to help you to identify the organizational resources or the physical resources, human resources, information resources, and physical resources. Here are the examples of human resources and human capabilities. Human resources are the superior CEO characteristic, outstanding board of directors, experienced manager, well-trained, motivated, loyal employees. While human capabilities is executive leadership skills, outstanding governance, excellence management, development and retention, effective decision-making, and top-notch training and motivational practices. We all know that resources are the organization's asset, knowledge, and skills, while capabilities can define the organization's ability to effectively make use of its resources or the power of ability to do something. To be a core competence, the answer should be yes to both of this question. It is capability valuable and it is capability unique. If the capability satisfies both questions, then it has potential for a competitive advantage. Here is the example of core competence. If you have capability and it is valuable and it is unique, well, it is your strategic strength. While your core competence is lack of capabilities, plus it is valuable and it is unique, is called strategic weakness. We should always remember that if the capability satisfies both questions, then it has the potential for a competitive advantage. Now let's move to the Braille framework. The Braille framework is a strategic analysis tool designed to help organizations uncover and protect the resources and capabilities that give them a long-term competitive advantage. Note that we're not simply talking about a list of your strengths, which are things you do well but are not necessarily unique to your organization, nor are we talking about advantages that are fleeting. Sustainable competitive advantages are those that competitors can't easily duplicate in foreseeable future. They are also a crucial element of business success. Whether you have one or many sustainable competitive advantages, a Braille analysis will help you to identify and leverage them as part of your strategic plan. What is the Braille framework and how does it uncover sustainable competitive advantage? RAIO is an acronym for 4-question framework focusing on value, rarity, imitability, and organizations. The criteria used to evaluate an organization's resources and capabilities. Valuable. A resource of capability is said to be valuable resources if it allows the firms to improve the company's efficiency and effectiveness by exploiting the opportunities and neglecting the possible threats in the business. The resources which don't fulfill the condition may lead to be competitive disadvantage. If you cannot find any valuable resources, then you are at a competitive disadvantage. As an example of valuable resources might be your team. They allow you to constantly innovate so you don't fall behind your competition. For example, Union Pacific has an extensive network or a rail line property and equipment across the Gulf Coast and the United States. It's valuable as it allows the company to provide a cost-effective way to transport chemicals. Do you offer a resource that adds value for customers? Are you able to exploit an opportunity or neutralize competitions with an internal capability? If no, you are at competitive disadvantage and need to reassess your resource and capabilities to uncover value. If yes, if you value established, move on into your Braille analysis to rarity. Rarity. If you can only find assets that are valuable but not rare, then your organization is at position of competitive parity. You will find it difficult to sustain being ahead of your competition. As an example of a rare resource, considered Google. They have the most used search engine in the world. This scale is rare and difficult competitors to beat. Do you control scarce resources or capabilities? Do you own something that's hard to find yet in demand? If no, you have value but lack rarity. Putting your company in a position of competitive parity, your resources are valuable but common, which makes competing in the marketplace more challenging. It's recommended to go back one step and reassess. If yes, with value and rarity identified, your next hurdle is immutability. Immutability. Immutability of the resource is concerned with the long-term competitive advantage of the company. If the resources available in the organization can be easily duplicated or imitated, then such resources do not provide competitive advantage in long term. For resources to be competitive, the cost of immutability should be very high. If the resources are immutable in this competitive business environment, it won't take much for competitors to share the market in their respective environment. Basically, there are the three factors which makes any resources difficult to imitate with. First is if the resources are of unique historical importance with limited access. Second, if the resources are based on the human competences, interpersonal relation, a company's culture and reputation. The third one is that if the association between the resources and company's operation is unknown, which makes it difficult for the competitors to imitate. If you can only find resources that are valuable and rare but easy to imitate, then according to Breyer, your business is temporarily competitive advantage. As an example of an imitable resource is considered Coca-Cola. The Coca-Cola recipe is secret, thus impossible to imitate. Even if the competitor created a cola that tastes exactly the same, it still couldn't say it was using the Coca-Cola recipe. Imitability. Is it expensive to duplicate your organization resource or capability? It is difficult to find an equivalent substitute to compete with your offerings. If no, your resource has value and rarity, but is affordable or easy to copy. You have a temporary competitive advantage. It will require considerable effort to stay ahead of competitors and differentiate your services. Yes, you offer something that's valuable, rare, and hard to imitate. Now, the focus is on your organization. Organization. The last factor of the Brio framework is organizational capability. The availability of the resources couldn't be well utilized if the organization is incapable of handling and exploiting those resources. Ownership, organizational leadership, norms and culture, human resources, management systems, processes, structure, financial capability, etc. shouldn't complement the available resources. Resources can be imitable, but the competencies with the organizations to exploit the resources is difficult to imitate. For example, the success story of most of the companies is backed up by successful organizational operation. Google is an IT-based company, hence the IT infrastructure along with its human resources make Google a highly competitive company. Similarly, Walmart's supply chain and distribution channel makes the company highly competitive. In organization, does your company have organized management systems, processes, structures, and cultures to capitalize on resources and capabilities? If no, without the internal organizations and support, it will be difficult to fully realize the potentials of your valuable, rare, and costly to imitate resources. Your company will have an unused competitive advantage and it will need to reassess how to attain the needed organization. If yes, well, your company has achieved the ultimate goal of the sustained competitive advantage when it has successfully identified all four components of the Brio framework. Now, this is the Brio framework example for Nike. For a simple example of how to use Brio framework. As you can see, Nike has two resources or capabilities that provide it with long-term competitive advantage, innovative products and associated patents, as well as the Nike brand. These two resources are valuable as Nike can use them to drive revenue directly. They are also rare. For example, you can't merely copy Nike's patents. They are costly to imitate. For example, it would cost billions for dollars in advertising over many years for a new competing brand to build up the same brand recognition as Nike has. The organization is also structured around these capabilities so as it can continue to be source of competitive advantage long into the future. In the Bray example for Nike, you can also say that Nike's relationship with athletes doesn't provide a sustained competitive advantage. Why not? One reason is that a competitor could outrank Nike in this regard by more aggressively signing up young and promising athletes. Understand that Nike's relationship with athletes is still a definite advantage of the firm, but it isn't the source of long-term sustained competitive advantage. Finally, note that the rule for relationship with athletes has the answer. Yes, yes, no, yes. The important thing to note is that as you read the row from left to right, as soon as you reach the first no, this is where you stop your analysis. That's all for today. Thank you.